If you were going to commit suicide and even go through the trouble of looking up quick and painless ways to do it, would you then choose a serrated steak knife to do it with? Or would you choose a blade, that's not jagged and isn't going to tear across your skin as you're trying to force it into yourself? That's just one of the questions surrounding the Ellen Greenberg case. And today we're getting into it. Hey guys, it's Diana. Welcome back to the Mad Chatter podcast. Today we're going to be going over the case of Ellen Greenberg and how the city of Philadelphia wants us to believe that this 27-year-old woman decided to stab herself while making a fruit salad and then proceeded to stab herself 10 times in the back of the head and the neck, and then 10 more times, roughly, in her chest, and then end it with stabbing a steak knife right in her heart. So let's start at the beginning. But before I do that, I just want to say that everything I say in this video is alleged. It's just my own personal opinions. You guys can do your own research, form your own opinions. This is just strictly what I think. I'm not accusing anybody or making any, claims or anything like that. This is just strictly my opinion. Now, I recently watched the Hulu program that Ellen's parents are on, and her family and her friends are also on. And, I saw some crime scene photos that I had never seen before, and it propelled me into doing this episode because it's just astonishing, this case, and that not in a good way either. I mean, the level of things that have been messed up in the investigation and everything from the very beginning are is just crazy to me. So let's start at the beginning. Okay. Ellen Greenberg was 27 years old the day that she died, and she died January 26th, 2011. She had just got home from, she was a first grade teacher, and they were having like a blizzard that day. So everybody got to go home early. The kids got sent home early, and she was going home. She was, happy about going home. And apparently, she was making a fruit salad, and her fiance, Sam, was also at the apartment at that time. And then he was going out to work out, which they have a gym like in the same apartment complex. And he said he left around 5:45, 6 o'clock, and that Ellen was fine. She was in the apartment and he went to the gym. So, according to him, he's just at the gym working out, and he goes back up to the apartment. And we can see this on the video surveillance from the apartment place. He goes up to the apartment and he can't get in the door. So he starts texting Ellen and calling her repeatedly, texting her over and over, like, "What are you doing? You better have a good excuse. Let me in. You have no idea, blah, blah, blah." And then he goes downstairs and tries to get like the front person, the attendee person, to go with him upstairs. He's like, "I can't get in my apartment. Can you come with me up there?" Which I don't know why he would involve that. To me, allegedly, and this is just my opinion, it seems maybe he was trying to get a witness to what he was about to do, but the guy couldn't go because they can't leave their station. So instead, Sam just was like, "All right, fuck it," went upstairs and kicked the door down. Now, the reason why this is a big deal is because they had one of those latch style locks on the door. So, like how the hotels have those metal locks at the top where you slide like the hoopy looking thing over. Well, apparently that was locked when he left. So he's saying that Ellen locked it from the inside and that's why he couldn't get in. So he goes in the apartment and sees her in there. And from the 911 call, he says that Ellen is on her back and that he doesn't know what happened. First, he says, I don't know, she's bleeding from her head. And then he's like, "Oh, she stabbed herself in the heart. She has a knife sticking out of her chest." And then the 911 call or the 911 operator is like, "Can you do CPR? Like, try to do CPR." And he was like, "Yeah, basically, like, I don't want to do CPR." Like, he's like, "Oh, I guess I have to, don't I?" But he never ended up doing it. And when they found well, I guess, like, okay, so he said that she was on her back, but from the crime scene photos that I saw, she was slumped against the kitchen counter. And so I don't know if he moved her or what, but there has been reports of somebody saying that she was moved because of the way that the blood was going down her face. So, I don't know, but I noticed that right away. I also noticed from the crime scene photos that she was clutching a white kitchen towel in her left hand, which also struck me as odd because if you're going to unalive yourself, why would you be clutching a towel in your left hand? I don't know. It just seems strange to me. To me, it seemed like she was like drying off her hands or doing something with it and then started getting stabbed or something like that. And she had on a pink puffy jacket vest, and it's like the down-filled ones with like the feather. I mean, you got to think like this back in 2011, like that stuff was really in back then. So if you can picture it, like that's what she had on. If you're again going to unalive yourself, why wouldn't you take that vest off first? Like, wouldn't you try to remove any obstacle that's going to prevent you from, I don't know, following through with your plan? But no, that was still on her. Her glasses were found like next to her body. And I also noticed on the kitchen counter that the knife block, the block with all the knives, was knocked over on the counter. And there were two big ass knives in the sink, like the butcher knife and then the long, skinnier one was also in there. So I'm like, why wouldn't she use those to try to unalive herself unless she actually didn't try to unalive herself? If Ellen was standing at the kitchen counter and she was making a fruit salad, and let's say somebody just rushed up behind her and started, attacking her, and they reached around Ellen's left side to grab a knife out of the wooden knife block, which I told you guys was knocked over. And let's say they did it so fast, that it knocked it over with the force of the pull. And then they just started stabbing Ellen in the back. And then let's say that's when she turned around, you know what I mean? And that's when they started stabbing her in the chest. But maybe that knife wasn't chosen specifically. Maybe that's just the one that they could grab. Maybe that's the first one that they could grab. You know what I mean? Okay, so anyway, the police come and Sam tells them that the front attendee indeed, in fact, did go with him when he kicked the door down. But that turns out not to be true. And the guy actually said in the Hulu special that, he was like, I want to be real clear. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but you're also not going to lie on me. You know what I mean? Like, don't be telling something that's not true, basically. So that wasn't true. And then, he said that she was having like mental issues, which she was seeing a psychiatrist. Like, she had only went and seen her 3 times. Like, this she had just started seeing her. I believe January 9th was the first time that she went, and then Ellen had she passed away on January 26th. So she went 3 times. I believe it was the 9th, the 12th, and the 16th or the 19th, and her psychiatrist said that she was feeling, like, much better by the 19th and that she wasn't suicidal, like, any times that she had seen her. She wasn't having, like, suicidal ideation or anything. And she also said that when Ellen talked about Sam, she always smiled and she never said that they had any domestic disputes, nothing like that, no abuse, nothing like that was brought up to her psychiatrist or anything like that, just so we're clear about that. She was actually seeing the psychiatrist because in November, she started to have like a mental decline, pretty much. She was having a really hard time at school. She was having, a few unruly kids at school. They were doing district updates and stuff like that. So she was under a lot of stress with work and stuff. She was telling her parents that she wanted to quit her job. She was telling Sam that she wanted to quit her job. She was telling her parents that she wanted to move back home and everything. So that's why she was seeing her psychiatrist. Okay, back to what I was saying about the police. So after the police come and, the coroner comes and takes Ellen away, I believe Sam's father is the one that actually contacted Ellen's parents and told them Ellie is gone. And they told her that, or they told her parents that she had taken her own life, and her parents did not believe that then. They still don't believe that now. Matter of fact, there's like an ongoing fight still to this day since 2011. Her parents have not given up trying to get that autopsy ruling overturned from suicide to homicide because they do not believe that their daughter committed suicide. You know what I mean? And there's like so much evidence to back their claim up that isn't true, including on the autopsy the medical examiner first ruled this as a homicide. And then there was some kind of meeting with the medical examiner, the police, and some other people. I'm not really sure of who was all there. But then that same medical examiner changed the homicide ruling to a suicide. Like, what? What is going on? And not to mention, that same medical examiner has now recently in 2025 signed a sworn statement saying that he believes that it should not be suicide, that it should be his initial ruling of homicide or, just categorized as something other than suicide. Don't quote me on his exact words. But to me, that's a huge red flag. I mean, wouldn't you think that was a huge red flag? But so he was, okay, anyways, he was saying that Ellen had hesitation wounds on the back of her neck, which he said is indicative of somebody that is hesitating, stabbing themselves, that they're like, "Ooh, I can't do this," or "Oh, that hurts," or they're just hesitating, right? But I'm thinking like maybe it looks like hesitation wounds, but maybe it's just because it was a freaking serrated bread knife and it's not just gonna pierce the skin all easy. I don't know, a butcher knife or something like that. You know what I mean? So, what if it was just from the knife and it's not hesitation wounds? You know what I mean? I just don't understand how somebody could stab themselves over 20 times and keep on doing it. Like your pain centers would be firing off after the first time. Like your body would be like, no, no, I'm not stabbing myself again. Screw this. Like we're not doing it. But they want us to believe, the city of Pittsburgh wants us to believe that's what happened, that she just kept on stabbing herself, even though the coroner or the medical examiner said that two of her wounds were post-mortem. There was no blood hemorrhaging around them, around the tissue or anything like that, which means that there was no pulse when she got those two stab wounds. Okay, so how did she stab herself after she was already dead? She was just twitching or what? And even how did she even continue to stab herself after she severed her spinal cord? How do you continue to stab yourself? You'd be, mostly like immobilized. So you're just going to keep on stabbing yourself? Like what? How many more times? At least 10 more times, and one of them directly in your heart. Like, and for Sam to say, I'm sorry, but this is just my opinion, for him to say, she stabbed herself in the heart. I don't know. To say the word heart is so weird. Isn't it weird? Like, she stabbed herself in the heart. Wouldn't she say, I don't know, there's a knife sticking out of her chest or something like that? Wouldn't you say something like that? Why would you say, oh, she stabbed herself in the heart or she fell on the knife, even though he said she was on her back? So what? She fell on the knife and then flipped herself over? I don't understand. And Ellen's hands completely clean, no blood on them. No blood on the kitchen towel either that was clutched in her hand. If you're stabbing yourself in the back of your neck and in your chest, and last one, right in your heart, you mean to tell me you're not gonna have any blood on your hands? Your hand's not gonna slip at all? You would think we would at least see wounds on her palms from her hand slipping and like catching on, the fucking serrated part of the fucking blade. It's just crazy. Like, none of this makes sense. Maybe they weren't actually hesitation wounds. Ellen's family, they've hired their own team of people to research stuff. And one of their researchers, did like a 3D photo thing to prove that, for one, Ellen couldn't have stabbed herself in those locations, like on the back of her neck and stuff, and at all the different angles that the knife was going in. You know what I mean? Like, she could not have been able to do that. And instead of them being hesitation wounds, what if they were actually defensive wounds? What if she was like moving and contorting her body away from whoever was attacking her at that time? You know, the medical examiner's like, "Oh, they're shallow." So they're hesitation wounds. People that are, thinking about unaliving themselves, they test out different blades and different knives and stuff like that, and how deep they'll go, so they have, like, hesitation wounds. But Ellen had some that were a little deeper, some that were, like, shallow, some that look like nicks, you know what I mean? Like, different sizes, and so what if they were defensive wounds? Because the coroner's like, "Oh, it was a suicide, there were no defensive wounds, like, there was nothing like, knocked over or anything going on at the apartment," but hello, the whole knife block was knocked over, and, you know, her wounds are super hard for her to inflict herself, especially the one that severed her spinal cord, which would have immobilized her. So I don't know. And I'm sorry, I'm getting fired up, but man, like, just going over this stuff and having kids myself, it really makes me freaking mad. It makes me mad that this was ruled a suicide when it's like, what? What, you try to stab yourself 20 times and tell me if you can keep on doing it. Yeah, tell me if you can keep on doing it and keep your hands clean. If anything, her being stressed about her job and, she had a couple students that were in her class that were, pretty difficult that year, but she was not a new teacher. This was her fourth year teaching. So it's not like everything became too hard for her because she was new at it and whatever. No, this is her fourth year. So, did she have other things going on in her personal life that were bleeding over into her career life, or she was just like confusing it with having anxiety, or it was just making her extra stressed at work, or what was it? You know, like I said, like, this was her fourth year. She wasn't a rookie teacher. So, even if she was having all this anxiety and stuff, what if that was just used as, I don't know, a perfect cover up almost? You know what I mean? Like, oh, she was seeing a psychiatrist. Yeah, she was on medication, and she was on two different types of medication. She was on one for anxiety and then one to help her sleep. And it just seems like almost too perfect to be like, "Oh, she must have killed herself because, she was seeing a psychiatrist and she was on medication." But guess what? There's a lot of people that are seeing psychiatrists and on medication that don't do this. So you can't just say that, "Oh, yeah, you know, just put two and two together." But no, sometimes it doesn't equal four, you know? Sometimes it just doesn't. Okay, so they have Ellen's funeral, and sometime during that time after her death, the apartment complex had a crime scene cleanup crew come in and completely clean the apartment. Not just residential cleaners. No, the actual crime scene cleanup people. And I guess they did this because Sam's Sam and his very prominent defense attorney, uncle, lawyer wanted to come in and get some things. And when they went in, they ended up taking Ellen's cell phone, her personal laptop, and her computer laptop, her her makeup bag, her other bag, and everything. Like, why would you take her stuff? Why would you give your fiance's stuff to your uncle? Like, why wouldn't you just keep it yourself, or give it to her parents, or I don't know, give it to the police? Why would you give it to your defense attorney uncle? I don't know why that would be, but it took 24 hours to 48 hours before the cops, even got that stuff back. And then years until they actually went through the search history on her laptops, and they tried to say that, there was, suicidal topics that she was looking up, like quick quick suicide or painless suicide, but, stabbing yourself doesn't seem quick or painless, so I don't know why she would have decided on that after Googling it. But her family argues that, the chain of command was broke and that laptop and her cell phone were not in the possession of the police. They were in the possession of the uncle. So who knows if anything was tampered with, allegedly. Allegedly, we don't know what happened because everything was botched, basically. The crime scene was botched from Sam just like walking through it, even though he had no blood on him, or he had a little bit of blood on him, I guess, but I guess not the amount that he should have if he was actually trying to perform CPR on her. But I don't know, seems kind of sketchy to me. It also seems kind of sketchy to me. She decides to unalive herself after asking her parents if she could quit her job basically and move back home with them. Like, why did she want to move back home? Why was she asking her parents to move back home? Had she talked to Sam about that? Did she tell him that she wanted to move back home? When her parents asked her, like, what about the wedding? Like, you're supposed to be getting married. Her mom said that she just really did not want to talk about that, that Ellen just didn't want to talk about the wedding. And Ellen's one friend also said that Ellen, wasn't telling her about any of the wedding plans or really talking about planning the wedding at all. So I don't know what was going on with that either. They also found 31 bruises on Ellen's body during the autopsy, all in like various forms of healing. So they can't explain those either. So who knows? Who knows where those were from? I don't know if she was playing rugby in her spare time or what. That was sarcasm. Ellen parents keep fighting every day for her, and they have hired their own private investigators. They've hired, their own people to do things because the city of Philadelphia has been trying to shut them down for years. And you know what? They said, yeah, we're not going to sit down and just take it. We're going to stand up for our daughter and we're going to get her the justice that she fucking deserves. And that's exactly what they're doing. Even though they ended up filing a lawsuit against the city, and then they ended up settling with the city, and they ended up getting a settlement of like $650,000. And the city said that they would like basically reopen the case and look at it again and look at the autopsy again and go over everything again. But they ruled it a suicide once again in October of 2025. But Ellen's parents still did not give up. And as of 2026, January 2026, the FBI is now finally involved and they are looking into corruption. And they're going to find out what the heck happened to Ellen. And I hope we finally figure it out. I hope her parents, you know, can finally get justice for her and be at peace with knowing that they did every single thing that they possibly could to get their daughter justice and that they never ever gave up for her. Like they never gave up. And I just think that they are wonderful. And if anybody has any information at all, please contact the police department, contact Ellen's parents or their attorney or somebody, a tip line, something. Let's get justice for Ellen. And if you guys like this video and, comment, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. It really helps my channel grow. And I appreciate everybody watching. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.